Some of our viewers are wondering, should I force my kid to go to church?
Good question.
This whole topic, just even the title force, what are we talking about? What does that mean?
That word always catches my attention.
Yeah, it's such a buzzword.
Ooh, and awful.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be forced to do anything.
Even things you want to do, you don't want to be forced to do it.
Well, here's the thing. It's a myth, okay, that you can force your kids to go to church. Now, I know that some people put it in those terms. I think that it's not necessarily a useful way to think about it unless you are physically restraining your child with two large people dragging them along. I'm thinking of this because I have had kids that I've worked with in the past who went to a residential treatment facility.
Yeah.
And two very large employees of the facility would show up in the middle of the night and escort them by force
Right.
to this facility. Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
Usually when parents are asking this question, they're asking, how big of a deal should I make out of this? Should I insist that they go to church? You can't force them. Can we just take that out of the equation for a minute? We are not talking about force. And if that's part of the vocabulary you use in your family culture,
That's probably the first thing to change right there.
let's change that.
Let's change that.
Change it to what?
Choice.
Beautiful. Choice. Can I share a little story about this?
Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about church, Vicki and I are people of faith, and we have regularly attended church with our family for all of these years. I was in the position once of teaching a youth Sunday school class. And these are like 14, 15-year-old kids who weren't that interested in being in a Sunday school class. Now, I had a relationship with these kids, and I liked them, and they knew that I had fond feelings for them. And so I think they were okay being there with me, but they didn't necessarily want to be there in church, right? In the Sunday school class. So when I went in to open the class, I said this: don't come to this class. And they're all looking at me like, is he serious? Right? That kind of took them aback. And then I followed it up. Don't come to this class unless this is the very best place you could choose to be this hour. And if that is true, then come. We'll have a great experience together. But if that's not true, please don't come. It will be less pleasant for you and for me. And if there's somewhere else that you would rather be during this hour, please go there with my blessing. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at me like, what? Well, this kid over in the corner, he's leaning his chair up against the wall, and he's all like, my mom forces me to come. And I'm looking
You're like, I don't even see your mom here. How
I don't see your mom leave.
Yeah.
So what did he mean by force? He went on to explain, well, if I don't come to church, I don't get to have access to my gaming system during the week. Now listen to what he's telling me. Okay, so what you're telling me is this is the best place you could choose to be this hour. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you're building a culture in your family of choice.
Yes.
And so he recognized that, well, with your help, he recognized that choosing to be in church actually served him best for the rest of the week.
It was his choice to be there.
Yeah.
And you can always identify that by asking what would happen if I didn't. Mm-hmm. See, that introduces the element of choice. If I choose out, then I have to deal with all of these consequences. Okay, so you're choosing in?
So you're saying as a mom and a dad, if it's really important to you for a church, you want to somehow build in some consequences or some privileges that will be allowed to those that go to church.
As a parent, you get to drive the family bus. All right? And what I mean by that is you get to make the rules, you get to set the expectations. It's some version of the golden rule. Do you remember that? Whoever has the gold makes the rules. And I joke about that a little bit, but honestly, as the parents, that's your responsibility. You get to set the expectation.
Now, I had a friend recently ask me, almost this word for word, do I force my teenager to go? She doesn't want to go to church anymore. And, you know, I could say, this is my home, and if you live under my roof, you're going to go to church. But are you ready to follow through with the consequence of kicking your teenager out? And so if not, then maybe it's more of a, you can't really physically demand they be there. You can tell them your preferences. And I said you can set up privileges. You know, if you attend church, there's this particular privilege that will be afforded to all those who attend church.
I got an example of that too. One of the moms that I was working with, her 18-year-old son. Now this is a legal adult.
Right.
Okay, at least the first stage of adulthood. There's another stage that hits at 21, but whatever. This kid, 18 years old, was refusing to go to church. This was really important to mom. And I would encourage you, like Vicki, you were just saying, pick your battles wisely, okay? Our experience tells us, clinical experience, life experience tells us that if you force your child to go to church, they become resentful, rebellious, and that's more likely to drive them away from the family faith in the long run.
Yeah.
They'll leave it out of rebellion. If you create this culture of choice, then you have a whole lot more to work with. But pick your battles wisely. If this is so important to you as a parent, own it. And by own it, I mean tell them it's important to you, not to them, to you. Now this is important because it puts you in a position where you can actually create a different scenario. Here's what this mom did. And it was important to her, okay? She was so committed to her faith. She really wanted her son to be a part of that. And she realized she couldn't force him. He's 18, he's bigger than she is. So here's the scenario. She was providing him, okay? He's still living at home. She's providing him laundry services, transportation, telecommunications, and interestingly enough, she was providing him $30 a week for lunch. Okay, he was working a little construction job, and you know the catering truck comes by, and so she gave him $30 a week for lunch. She'd rather do that than make him lunch every day. $30 a week. And so the lights start going on, right? It's important to mom. How can you make it important to your child? And I encourage parents a lot of times to ask the question, why should they? You can come up with 10 reasons as a parent why they should, right? But those are your parent answers. Why should they? He didn't have any reason. And he's like, you can't cram your religion down my throat. And so we came up with an idea that she was going to pay him to go to church. She's got this $30 to work with, right? So she said, look, you go to church for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was. I'll pay you $30 a week to go to church. If you'll show up with a good attitude, just come with me. It's important to me. I'm willing to hire you to do that. His job was paying him $8 an hour.
So it was a good deal for him.
Mom's offering him like $15 an hour to go to church. But she wasn't forcing him. She was like, hey, take it or leave it.
And I think
it's important to me.
You bring up a really good topic right there is accept their answer. If they choose not to go, you know, if you set up all these incentives and they choose not to, remember that your relationship with your child is more important than anything they can do, including putting their bottom on a pew on Sundays.
Right.
The relationship is most important. So respect their choice as well if you've set it up as a choice.
Yes. If they're sitting there resenting you and hating you for it, are they getting what you wanted them to get out of church?
Yeah, and of course this is age and maturity dependent. You know, a little kid, you're not going to leave them at home. So there's no choice at that one. So there's different ways. We used to have a special candy jar that you got only on Sunday if you actually sat on the bench versus crawl around on the ground.
We did. We had Sunday treats.
Yeah. So remember, you're trying to teach these children and model for them respect and choice and agency and responsibility. And so always put that into context and anything that you're doing.
Vicki, you mentioned the younger kids and that they don't really have a choice. Everybody always has a choice. But it might not be a choice as to whether to go with you to church or not at that age. It might be that they have a choice to go with a good attitude or a bad attitude.
Or go on their own 2 feet or being carried, you know.
Right. They still have choices. And you can still incentivize those choices. I want to reiterate the importance of owning this. Do not assume or imply that this is important to them. They're giving you a very strong message that it's not. Now, from your mature adult mind, you're thinking, yes, but maybe some of this goodness will rub off on them or whatever, right? You believe for your own reasons that that's a better place for them to be than wherever else they would choose to be that day. Just own it. Let them know, like this mom I was telling you about, hey, it's important to me. And that's why I'm willing to hire you to go. Take it or leave it. And then accept their answer. But in her case, she doesn't keep giving him the $30 a week lunch money. That's available to him if he's willing to do that little job that she's asked him to do, right? And you might argue, well, he's not doing it for the right reasons. Is that any worse than the position you were in to start with? Honestly, I mean, it's probably better because we're taking down the emotional fervor about this. We're building a culture of choice, not force. I guess the short answer, should I force my kids to go to church? You can't. It's not a should thing. You can't force them to go to church, not legally.
Right.
I mean, you could get in all kinds of trouble probably if you tried. But you can have influence, you can incentivize, and you can own this yourself. Hopefully that helps a little bit. If you're finding these videos helpful, and we sure hope that you are, that's why we're here. We're here to support you as a positive parent. There's so much more that's available to you. Would you take a moment to schedule a call with one of our coaches? And we have a whole range of services available for you that will fit almost any budget. And if you talk with one of our coaches, we'll work to fit something to your needs. drpauljenkins.com/breakthrough call.